Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Kyle Tolsman, and you're listening to the Against All Average podcast, the show where business owners and entrepreneurs come to learn the skills and mindset to lead exceptional lives. Today, I am joined by the one and only Jake. I leave empty milk cartons in the fridge. Spurley. What's up, Jake?
Kyle, it's actually almond milk, so if you want to edit that for next time, that'd be great.
Oh my God. Don't tell me that. That's disgusting, Jake.
Every drop counts, man.
Oh man, I would hate to live with you.
Yeah, I mean, I would hate to live with myself, but I guess I have to do it for the rest of my life. Anywho.
Getting on.
Kyle, I know we're doing big things with the Against All Average podcast, but I also know we're, coming out with a brand. What's happening with the brand, dude?
Well, our sponsor of the show, which just happens to be your company, is building us a new website as we speak. And one of my favorite branding specialists, a good friend of mine, Adam from back in the day, does a lot of stuff with Nike and Adidas, is refreshing the brand, refreshing colors. It's going to be sweet, man.
It's going to be exciting. I know we got big things coming with the brand, coaching, just knowledge center. It's going to be a bunch of gold drop, and Kyle and I are super excited to bring this to all of our listeners and really get that brand side going.
Yeah, and our guest today has an amazing brand as well. He is just an extremely knowledgeable about getting companies, whatever size it may be, rolling and flowing. And so we'll get into that a little bit. We love our sponsors on the Against All Average podcast. When you need all things digital looking their best, call our friends at Fame Pro Services. Our friends will give you the Against All Average treatment with an awesome new website, custom graphics, social media management, and a full line of printing services. Fame, the trusted partner of the Against All Average podcast. I know I'm glad that I have all my websites of all my companies taken care of by Fame. So much more than just a simple website. They take care of your hosting and all that stuff. I'm like hands off. I just shoot Jake a text and like, hey, why is my website doing this or that? It's fixed within a couple hours, and that's why I love doing business with them.
That's why we say we'll give you the Against All Average treatment above anybody else.
Oh boy. You ready for this one, dude?
I'm ready to rock and roll. This guy's waiting. He's just chomping at the grit. He's probably laughing at us behind the scenes. You guys are idiots, but hey, we're ready to rock and roll. This guy's going.
He's got his dukes up like he's ready to battle. Let's go. Our guest today is a business mentor, speaker, best-selling author, and podcast host. He is best known as co-founder of LS1Tech, an online automotive community which grew into the largest of its kind with over 300,000 registered members. This business sold for millions in only 5 years after starting. Amazingly, it was just his part-time business. Tony once led a successful corporate career with over 27 years of experience in oil and gas, managing $100 million plus of international epic projects. He has built and scaled project management departments and consulted with Fortune 100 corporations on systems, processes, and leadership. Tony also has extensive experience in procurement and contract law, as well as contract negotiation. In 2015, Tony decided to focus on building businesses full-time and left behind a multiple six-figure salary range to do what he loves. Please welcome to the show, the side hustle millionaire, Tony Whatley. What's up, Tony?
Hey, Kyle, Jake, thank you guys for having me on the show. I love the title. Against All Average, because let's face it, average just is terrible and it sucks and we just need to get away from average. But unfortunately, that's the description that fits the vast majority. Otherwise, it would not be average. So hopefully in this episode, we're going to be able to break some people out of that mindset.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk mindset. And I know, Tony, you love talking about getting away from average. I was listening to, I forget what podcast you were on. You're sitting around a table talking to a group of guys, and you just started with it some extreme emotion about average. And you sort of spoke about how you grew up in the lower middle class. You grew up in that average environment where the 9 to 5 is the norm. Hanging out with your kids every once in a while is the norm. Every Friday night, it's the same bar. I mean, man,
Remember when? Remember when? If all your friends are always telling you about remember when they peaked in high school, they're probably the wrong people to be hanging around if you want to grow and do something better with your life.
Yeah, that's I haven't heard it said that way. That's so important. And if your high school stories are your coolest stories, or your stories from college, hey, you remember that one time when you fought that guy in the street outside that bar? You remember that? Yeah, you're probably stuck in that average lifestyle. So we're going to pick Tony's brains. Tony is against all average. He wants nothing to do with it, and he continues to show that each and every day. Let's let the listeners and the viewers on YouTube get to know you a little bit. Talk about that background. How did you grow up? What was mom and dad doing, or whomever you lived with? What was the feeling? What was the culture of growing up Tony Whatley?
Hey, thanks for asking that. My background is like you mentioned, I grew up lower middle class. My parents are both blue collar. Dad, U.S. Marine early in his career. Then he got into the oil industry and the chemical refineries here in the Houston area. And my mom is a Japanese immigrant, and she worked in the public school systems as a cafeteria worker her entire career. Both of them are retired now doing their thing. But they also taught me the value of hard work and drive and discipline. Had two disciplinarian parents with a sergeant in the Marines as a dad, and then the Japanese woman who's very vigilant about studying and making sure you go to school. So to give your listeners an idea of discipline I did not miss one day of school from kindergarten through graduation. Because my mom valued education so much, being a Japanese woman in her era, they basically didn't get to finish high school being a woman. They basically got pulled out and go pick fruit in the farms. So she valued education very much, and she made sure that my sister and I never skipped school. And even if we were just had a cold or sniffles, we're still going to go. Basically, we had to be dead or we're going to get on that bus. So, but that level of discipline I carried into adulthood as well. And I just understand if I want results, that my actions and the things I do result in what I want to achieve. And I learned that as an early kid. So I didn't have allowance. We didn't have a lot of money. And if I wanted to get something, whether that was video games or skateboards or bicycles, I had to go figure out how to make money. And for me, that was going to the corner store and buying boxes of candy and putting them in Ziploc bags and basically doubling my money at school with blow pops and Jolly Ranchers and wacky packages and garbage pail kids. Anybody that grew up in the 80s knows what I'm talking about. Now, the other way to do it was knock on doors, mow yards, wash cars, walk dogs. I was very creative. And people say, well, you're a young entrepreneur. It's like, I didn't know what that was. To me, it was just, I wanted a skateboard and no one's going to buy that for me. So I could go figure out how to do that. So I became an entrepreneur through a means of getting what I wanted. And then I later became better at the strategies.
Man, Tony, I was thinking that you were listening to our podcast a few episodes again when the mad hustler Jake Spurley was talking about how he used to go and sell candy bars at school, and he always makes the joke that it was always that 300% markup on Fridays because you got to get them stocked up for the weekend. And then I was doing the same thing. I was pushing my lawnmower around the neighborhood. I used to have a paper route, and then we moved houses, and I could no longer do that route. I probably could have, but it was a few miles too far riding my bike, and I'd start pushing the lawnmower around the neighborhood. And it's so simple. I think entrepreneurs find a simplicity in making that money. I wanted a new bike, and so I pushed the mower from house to house, and I was like, this is simple. I see grass. It is too long. I have a lawnmower. I will cut said grass, and I'll buy a new BMX bike. I didn't even know the word entrepreneur. I couldn't pronounce it. There's no way at that time. I was just finding ways, and I think that's a general theme of the entrepreneurs that we've had on the show is they all have that spirit. They have that drive of, hey, I can find some simple problems to solve to generate money to get to X or get to Y or buy certain things that they want. Talk a little bit about your career. You were in the oil industry for quite some time. And then just recently, and I don't know how recently, and you'll have to tell the listeners this, you went back into that full-time entrepreneur mindset. Talk a little bit about your career and how that built you into the person you are today to offer such great advice through your podcast, through your communities. You do one-on-one coaching. You do so much of giving back. How did that career set you up for this success, Tony?
So it starts back when I was 18. I got basically working as a laborer in those chemical refineries, just like my dad did. And I was grinding the end of pipe bevels for welds, and I was doing insulation and painting epoxy coatings. So I was a laborer. I literally have dug ditches and done stick rod welding and built rudimentary staircases and things like that when I was young. And working here in the Houston area, it gets hot in the summer, and you're out there in a Nomex fire retardant jumpsuit and a hard hat. And it only took a couple summers of realizing, like, I didn't want to do this, because all you had to do was look at your colleagues that you worked with, other men on your crew. Some of those guys were in their 60s in the exact same position as you at age 18. And you realize that this is just a means to an end, and it's never going to end. It's going to take 40 years. I'm going to be in the same situation. So you're looking at the people working in the air conditioned offices over there, and you're like, well, what do they do? I want to go work over there. They're in the air conditioning. They get to wear normal clothes. And what's that all about? Well, they're the engineers. And so me growing up little, middle class, we're always on that hunt for six figures. We always think that that's a lot of money, especially when we don't have it. And I realize that the average income in the United States is somewhere around 50,000, I believe, right now. So there's a lot of people out there dreaming for that six-figure thing. And we're led to believe that it's this massive success, that you're going to be popping bottles and flying around on a jet, and you're going to have this mansion when you make $100,000 a year. We all know that's just not realistic. That's not the reality. It was a lot closer to reality back in the 1970s, 1960s, when that thought was first embedded in people. But due to inflation and raising prices and the devaluation of the dollar, it's really, you need to have about 500,000 to have that same lifestyle that people dreamed about back in the 1960s when they were talking about 100,000. So when you understand that, it's like, okay, well, how do I get to six figures? And I was so focused on what we always hear: doctor, lawyer, engineer. You have to be one of these three to go get $100,000. Well, I'm a car guy. I love cars. So I said, okay, what is anything related to cars? Like lawyer? No, that sounds boring. Medical? No, I don't want to cut people open and deal with sick people. So engineering. So I'm average at math. I'm more creative. I'm an artist type person, aesthetic. I'm a very visual person. And I said, well, I guess mechanical engineering, I'll get to learn a few mechanical things, and I could maybe design cars. So that was why I pursued that degree. And it took me 7 years, because I was working full time in those chemical plants. I was waiting tables on the weekends, and I went to school at nighttime. My grades suffered because of that. I was basically putting myself through college, working full time, going to night school, sleeping about 3 hours a night for 7 years. That whole 24/7 hustle and grind, that was my life for college. Anybody that tells me they enjoyed college, they didn't have the same situation I did. I think it sucked. It was one of the worst periods of my life. Just sleep deprived zombie that was broke, that was always worried about what was due next. And finally got out, and I started working engineering, and I just had made a good career. I was making six figures a few years in, eventually making over $250,000 near my exit. And the whole thing was that I had this sunk cost fallacy. People always ask me, like, well, if you made millions of dollars from these side businesses, why did you stay in that career so long? Well, part of the reason is because of that sunk cost fallacy. And let me explain that. You just heard about the struggle I went through for 7 years to pay for that degree myself. I was proud that I had earned it, and I felt like I was going to waste that degree somehow if I didn't use it. They're still hanging on the wall right now, being wasted right now, covered with dust, if you think about it. But when you're in that mode and you think about, oh man, I've got 20 years experience, Kyle. I've been promoted. I'm right under VP. I'm on the executive path. And, why would anyone leave this dream job? I'm working for a Fortune 10 company, major oil companies, as staff, and people dream and would kill, and all the suppliers and engineering companies and all the manufacturers would dream to be the staff there. It's very prestigious. It's an ego-driven title company to work for. And why would I walk away from somebody else's dream job and paid this much money? Again, sunk cost fallacy. What that truly means is that you can always go back. The degree that you have, the education you have, can never be taken away from you. So it's a sunk cost that whether you quit using it today or you leave the industry today, like, it doesn't matter. Like, all that stuff is the past. It's not going to change the future. So you have to get past that sometimes, and you have to get rid of the ego or the status or the perceived status that you've created within your corporate career, and understand that it's a 20-year plus journey to make multiple six figures for most companies, even at the highest paid salaries. Okay. With entrepreneurship, I was actually making that much money 3 years in at that company that I started, my side business. So as I started to get older and looking at my supervisors in corporate, I started to pay more attention to their lifestyle, not just their leadership or what they're doing in the office. I got to know them a little bit better, see what kind of car or vehicle they drive, maybe see what kind of house they live in. And I started to ask myself, can that person give me anything that I really want? Do they have the life that I dream about? And the answer was, nah, not really. So as I started getting a little older, I started getting a little higher level supervisors, reporting to vice presidents and things like that. Does this person have anything that they can give me? Do they have the lifestyle that I dream about? Answer is no, not really. So let me think a little higher. Okay, if the vice president doesn't have that, well, maybe the president surely has a lifestyle that I can desire, and maybe that's something that I can get from them. I'm looking at their life and my life and the businesses that I've owned. I've actually had a better life than everybody I've worked for. So the answer was always no. So when I got in my 40s, I said, this is like never going to end. I'm going to sit here in this office for 20 more years before I can retire, working for people extremely hard that can't give me what I want. It's like, that's just not going to happen anymore. I need to go take charge. And in 2015, I decided to leave the oil industry. A lot of people thought I was crazy, but I said, guys, I love cars and I love business. I'm going to go teach people how to create businesses, because I've been doing it privately for 15 years. And I've helped 12 people build 7- and 8-figure companies that were just my friend circle, just random people that I knew, and they were asking me for advice. And then they would always give me feedback. They would say, you need to be teaching people this. You need to be teaching the people this. And dude, I had a plethora of excuses of why I didn't do it, because I didn't feel like I wanted to put myself out there. It was really fear of criticism, fear of judgment. I had a lot of money put away. I had a career, I had a family. I had a bunch of excuses to avoid doing that, putting myself out there and getting my message out there. And that's really why I didn't start doing it until 2015, even though I've been giving advice since 2002.
Right. That's crazy that you talk about fear that holds people back. Do you still sometimes get those butterflies in your stomach before you're hitting a stage or before you're hitting a podcast, or you ever second guess yourself that you're actually giving the best knowledge of a business person?
I would say early in my speaking career, when I started to first get on stages, yeah, absolutely. When you're not prepared to speak and you don't know how to use vocal inflections, and you are more focused inward on the judgment again, you're standing in front of hundreds of people or thousands of people in some cases, and you're really worried about how you look or how you sound, or am I making you're too worried about yourself. And as you start to do enough reps, whether it's videos or podcasting or whatever you're doing to get your message out there, you start to be more outward focused. Now I'm more value focused and driven on what is the audience receiving from this. Hopefully your listeners are going to get something from this. Like, I want to please that one listener or that one viewer that's going to change something about the way they do things and get some actual results. And they're going to tell people about this. And that's how I get my message out. So when you start to do enough reps, what happens is you'll start to transition to be more focused on the people and what they're getting from you, rather than inward focused on how you look, how you sound, am I saying things correctly? So it all comes from training and repetition. So I don't get nervous anymore. I've stand in front of 1,500 people, and I have it in my mind. I already visualize exactly how the speech is going to be, weeks before. I already see the audience in my mind. I can see what it's going to look like. I can visualize the stage. I try to get to the event a little bit earlier so I can get a feel of the room, what it looks like, how it sounds, what it smells like, get rid of all those senses. So I get used to that, and I visualize myself, and I can see myself doing the opening, and I can see myself doing the closing, and I can visualize on how the audience is going to react. And then I just go up there and do it. And it's very accurate when you think of it that way.
Yeah, I think that's so important with everything we do, is that repetition and that preparation. I think many people don't understand that the best speakers in the world or the best coaches in the world have spent so much time preparing for that moment. If we look at basketball, we look at the Kobe Bryants, the LeBron James, the Michael Jordans of this world. Think of the hours and hours of preparation these folks put in, and you start to realize that it's all in the preparation. It's all in setting yourself up for success. So I love that, Tony, that you're not nervous anymore, that you're prepared and you're really focused on giving value, and you're just so driven to just that one person. Can that one person have their life changed by the way in which you spoke about a certain topic? And that's what we try to do here as well. Is I don't know who's listening to this episode in the years to come, but we hope that at least one person can have some sort of change of heart to live a life that isn't average, that they're struggling every single day to make ends meet and check by check. And they're telling stories about, hey, remember when, instead of, hey, what are we doing now? Hey, let's go close on that apartment complex, or let's do this, or that, let's do that. I love that. Your kind of nickname that you've got is the Side Hustle Millionaire. You've got a book of that same title. I believe it's titled Side Hustle Millionaire. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that comes from LS1Tech, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a funny story behind that title. I actually didn't like the title initially when my editor suggested it. I actually wrote the manuscript with the title The Hustle. And
Okay.
it was a cliche thing for me because in the automotive scene, my screen name was Nine Ball, and like the billiards game, because literally I used to be a semi-pro 9-ball collegiate champion. And so the very first online group I joined, I didn't want to be creative. So I just used that as a screen name. And as I started to join more groups, I just used the same screen name. So it kind of stuck. So I thought I was going to name this book The Hustle because it's the play on words for entrepreneurship, and the play on words for, it's kind of throwback to the old name. And so he's reading the book and he's editing it, and he's like, man, this is a great book. I think it's going to do really well. He goes, but we got to work on that title. I said, well, what's wrong with the title? And I tried to explain it to him just like I explained to you. And he's like, yeah, it still sucks. I'm like, okay. I said, well, what do you think it should be? And he goes, dude, you're the Side Hustle Millionaire. He goes, how many people do you know of that have made millions of dollars from a side business, a hobby business? I said, other than my business partner and one other friend that had a similar website, I don't know very many at all. I know there's a lot of them out there. We just don't know them. I know of some. So he goes, that's who you are. And I was like, man, that sounds pompous. It sounds a little bit arrogant. It sounds kind of just contrived. And it sounds, I was being the skeptic of skeptics, right? Because again, I was coming from a place of wanting to hide and not put myself out there in a bold way and avoiding the criticism. And I knew that a bold title like that would invite more potential criticism. So I kind of had that skepticism. And I said, oh man, let me think about this overnight. And I talked about it with my wife, and I looked at it, and the next morning I said, you know what are they going to dispute from that title? It was a side business. It was a side hustle. There's nothing to dispute there. It's all on record. The company bought it. It's a publicly traded company. I said, and I made millions. So what can they dispute from that? So I said, okay, I'm going to go ahead and step into my role. And honestly, about the first month, it took me probably a full month to finally just feel like, okay, I'm going to live with that title.
Yeah, I think in branding and in marketing, especially as you're as we've known, like getting into this, we're like, man, our titles suck. Like episodes 1 through 10 or something like that. It was not that marketing approach. It was not that branded style. Like it wasn't engaging in some curiosity to say, oh, I want to listen to that. You look back at it. And so, I love the title of the Side Hustle Millionaire, because again, people are like, is he really a millionaire from just on the side? Like, can I do that? And, I have a few side hustles. My main job is still, I'm a high school teacher, and I teach business in high school, and things have changed a lot as I've been teaching. And I teach in a way that a lot of business teachers don't. And we bring in sales funnels and all sorts of fun stuff. But I do, I started a side hustle 8 years ago that I wouldn't be where I am now if I never had started it. And the skills that you learn with a side hustle is reason enough to do it. If you didn't get paid a penny for your side hustle, just the skills I know that I've learned, and no doubt you've learned over the years of running that LS1Tech. So next up, Tony, we talked about this before. So LS1Tech, it's based on the LS1 motor, right? And it's all sorts of technology of putting LS1s in all sorts of different vehicles, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Talk a little bit. Can you take the listeners and try to keep it about 5 minutes ish, step by step? What does it look like to start that first business? Did you go online to get the business license? Did you open the checking account? And kind of what softwares or who did you talk to with this big vision of creating basically this massive forum of everyone that loves the LS1?
So I'm going to it's going to be shocking because although we can look at the results and go, wow, that's a lot of money and things did really well. What I want to show is that I actually did entrepreneurship the way I suggest to people even today. Maybe there's a listener right now who thinks they need to know everything before they start. And they think they need all these answers. And they think that they need to go spend thousands of dollars on online courses and hire a coach and read 50 books and listen to all of our awesome podcasts. We all have a great amount of information. It's accessible nowadays. I get it. But there's too many people out there that don't take any actions to apply what they learn. You're a teacher. You see students that can hear what you're saying, but they never apply what they learn and they don't get the results. So I wanted the listeners to understand that I was actually thinking very small when I built this website. I just wanted a cool place for car guys to hang out online and talk about General Motors performance cars. I said, okay, I'm one of those guys. I got a couple friends like that. Let me just build this little thing so people can hang out on websites and talk about racing and building cars and showing cars and how to become a better driver, how to make your car faster. And I said, okay, that's just what I wanted. And the funny thing is I had one business partner and I said, you know, what's a financial goal? And he's like, you know, these are hobbies. We're both making six figures in our job. We don't really need the money. So, you know, if we made $500 a month, that would be pretty cool because that was the actual amount of our car notes. So he was driving a Camaro SS. I had a Trans Am and it was $500 a month. I said, hey, dude, if we can get $500 a month, that's like a free car doing something we enjoy, right? So I want to point that out because even though I started it as a side hustle, like a lot of people that position themselves as experts now in that side hustle business, I thought really small. It wasn't about making millions of dollars. But here's the thing, as you started to treat it more like a business, it starts to grow and then you got to take it serious. Most people start a side business as a hobby and they keep that hobby mindset in the side dish of the main course. They keep that mentality forever and the business never makes any money, first of all, because they keep paying themselves too much out of the profits. They're not reinvesting back into the company. So you got to understand that a lot of people just have this really small idea of how to really start a business and they stick with that too long. So me and my partner were like, dude, we need to treat this like a business. Like in a few months, we were making $10,000. It's like, wow, I think we need to go get one of those corporation or LLC things, whatever they are. Like I'm illustrating, like I didn't know all the answers. We didn't know the answers. And it just started to grow. And I said, wow, you know, how do we make more? What can we do in business wise, common sense and accounting to make this scale? Like, how do we grow some more? It's all online. We're not really spending a lot of time here. And so we started to do different things to increase the membership counts because we knew that if we could attract more people or build a larger community, we had more leverage to go after more advertisers and also to be charging more for ad rates. So it was a really simple thing is because we could look at our server logs. We could see how many people were visiting initially, and we could also see how many people were logging in with an actual account, and we could compare those two. And early on, it was about 50% of the people that were logging in and only 50% were what we called lurkers. They were just, you know, using the information, but they didn't have an account. And said, okay, well, we can't present advertisers with lurker information. We need people with actual accounts, registered accounts that we can go take to potential advertisers. So how do we do that? So I came up with something that we call a win-win-win scenario, where we think about how do we get this win-win-win and not really have any money out of our own pocket. You see this happen actually on Instagram. People are doing these growth campaigns now. You've seen this on Facebook. Well, we did giveaways. All I had to do was go find one of my current advertisers and say, hey, we're going to make you a featured sponsor for this month if you'll give us $500 gift certificate that they'll spend with you whenever they win. And so what we do is says anyone that's registered with a membership here is eligible to win a $500 gift certificate. And when you had fewer people at the time, which was, I think at the time, probably around 5,000 members at the time to really, you know, you had pretty good odds of winning and it was just free. You just had to trade your email and put your name in there and you had a chance at winning. And so the win-win-win was that featured advertiser got a month of, you know, just special privileges, more mentions, a bigger banner perhaps. They also got a customer from whoever won the gift certificate. Because of that, we got the benefit of people enrolling because they saw all this that was going on and we had it on a big banner and announcing it. And so it was really a lead magnet. And then the person that won the event won the $500. And as we started to grow this out, we started to get about 50% more enrollment rate. So we were converting a lot of the people that were lurking into actual registered members. And that just continued. And as we started to grow more revenue, we started to ask for more, you know, it's like now it's $1,000. If you want to be that featured sponsor, it's $1,000. And we would just do that. And sometimes we'd do 2 giveaways. We would say, ones for all of the membership. And we would say, here's another one just for the people that registered this month. See, so they had 2 chances to win if they would entice them to get off of their, their chair and start to do this. So we started to grow these things without spending any of our own money. We're getting volunteer money. They're getting the advertising rates. They're getting the benefits from that. And so that was one way we did that. And the other way to grow the community is you have to understand that it's not about you. There's a lot of people that think about followers and things like that on social media nowadays. That's not as important, especially if you're building a community, because I had 2 websites actually that cumulatively were closer to 600,000 total members. Everybody about LS1Tech because it was one of the 2. But my second one was performancetrucks.net, which was the exact same business model that we decided, you know what, we're going to go create a truck website with the same business model and foster these exact same relationships we have with the people that are already advertising with us on this site. And we're just going to focus on performancetrucks.net. And so we scaled that one out and it grew to over 250,000 members on its own. So we've got 2 behemoth websites. Jeez. And of course, people only know the big one, which is kind of funny because my second biggest was still much bigger than most of them out there also. So you can see how we start to scale these things. That's staying within a vertical of that space and overlapping the ads. And then, man, I had side hustles within side hustles within side hustles because that led to new vendors coming in saying, well, I don't have a website. And I would refer that out for a while. And it's like, you know what, I should be hiring some people as freelancers to build websites because I can make money off of that too. So people would come in, man, we would love to advertise on your website, but we don't have a website. So, well, how about we build that for you? Oh, cool. You guys can do that. Yeah. We'll just put that in the invoice and we'll cover that and we'll spread the cost out over the year. You'll have a website instantly and we'll be able to get you on here and we'll put a banner, we'll create the banner for you. You don't have to use any graphic design. And people were like, hell yeah, that's turnkey. And then so recurring revenue is what created that valuation because we would give discounts. If you sign up for 6 months, you got 5% off. If you sign up for a year, you got 10% off. And our rates were extremely low compared to what magazines were charging at the same time. We're like 1/10 of what magazines were charging, but we had 10 times the amount of eyeballs looking at our website. To give your listeners an idea, we had over 100,000 unique visitors showing up to that website every single day. Now, a good magazine might be 100,000 issues in circulation for a month. We did that in 1 day. So we were kicking the crap out of print media at a fraction of the price. So it was very easy to convince them that they needed to be a part of this. And we would also do things like grandfathering in on their ad rates. So we tell them like, hey, here's our growth scale year over year. We're going a lot. And here's our ad rates today. If you guys join in right here, you get to stay at this ad rate, even if it lasts 20 years. And so as long as they didn't break their contract, they stayed at that ad rate forever. And that enticed them to always renew, because if they didn't renew, they would have to come back at a newer rate, which sometimes is double, right? So these are just creative ways to build on advertising. And you think about it, this was all done before Facebook even existed. We sold that company in 2007. Facebook started to come out in 2008, 2009. So when we look at social media now, we were doing a lot of the exact same things back in the forum, but we really revolutionized the forum industry to make money, because before that, it was just a bunch of hobbyists with their different forums and different subjects, but we actually treated it like a business, did the advertising the right way, grew it and scale it the right way, and just treated it much like you see Facebook and Instagram, all the other social media is doing today.
Wow. Those are we're not going surface level right now, folks. This is pretty deep. And what I love about what you're saying, Tony, is you're talking about running a company that eventually got sold for millions, but you found strategic ways to keep money in your pocket but benefit the community, because you could get everybody, you could use the community to work for itself in order to continue to grow and add value for so many people. Additionally, you mentioned, hey, I've got all these people and I have all these advertisers, but some of my target market as far as advertisers don't even have a website. So instead of just getting the 5% referral fee, how about I just hire somebody and we'll start building them in-house? I think those of you that are listening right now, don't be closed-minded to business opportunities. You may start building something like LS1Tech, and you think that your revenue sources are just coming from source A. However, if things are coming your way, people are coming your way, if they're asking the same questions and you're solving them by outsourcing, start to look inside a little bit and say, hey, where can I make an extra $500 here or $1,000 there? And it's not about being greedy. You have to think about, well, how am I spending this money? Who am I helping, et cetera? And sometimes that's a mindset issue as well. I know Jake wants to chime in here and ask a couple questions, but thank you for going in and talking about giveaways, because giveaways can work on social, Facebook, Instagram, et cetera, and they usually do pretty well as far as a growth strategy.
And yeah, thank you again for that. And you touched a lot on what you guys are doing right. I think it's important for not only our listeners to hear about, the good things you guys did, but also the things that you guys screwed up on. I'm sure there were several things, but, just maybe pick one or two of the big ones that hindsight 2020, you're like, crap, that really sucked. Or, hey, probably would have done that differently. Or maybe just something that really did not work that you thought it was going to.
I would say that we did a lot of stuff right, only because we were pretty methodical about thinking about the cause and effect of the things or the actions or the policies or processes that we put in. We also looked at the core values and the culture that we created. I mean, there's a reason that website still exists today, even though it was 2007 we sold it. It's still like the #1 GM performance website, because we instilled the right culture and left the right team behind to manage that. And they're still there. Most of them are still there. People that we worked with 15 years ago. So when you understand that, it's okay, I'll teach you a little bit about how to do things right instead of looking at the mistakes. Because I know everybody likes to hear about what's the worst mistake. We have any, to be honest, because we stayed ahead of those. We monitored reactions. So one of the things is when you're building a community, and I consider building a community as one of my superpowers because I've done it a few times. So I teach people that if you're going to go build a community or a leadership, be a leader of something like that, again, it can't be about you. Most people focus, like we talked about speaking earlier, you're too focused internally on yourself, and you think that everybody is following you as a pedestal below you, and like somehow you're elevated above them, where true leaders actually interact and engage and are accessible by the people of the community that they built or they serve. So they understand that you're the boss, you're the director, whatever you want to call yourself. They understand that, the title, the position. But when you start to act like you're better than them, or you're inaccessible, or you're big leaguing somebody, that's not going to help you out, because that's going back to satisfying ego rather than understanding what the mission is. So if you want to be a leader and build something with hundreds of thousands of people or hundreds of thousands of followers, you got to understand that it's not about you. The lines of communication are not from me to each individual person that's in my organization. Everybody thinks that these direct lines are going straight between individuals to you. If you're the right community organizer, community builder, what you really should be trying to do is get really strong bonds between the people within your community. So if you guys are both in my community, I want you guys to know each other. I want you guys to be best friends, because I'll remember where you guys met, and you'll say like, oh, we all hang out here and we met here, and you build the spider web effect. So the things that you can do to create those bonds from between the members of your community, not just your lines of communication, that's key. And I think that's what the #1 thing is most people miss out. They just want followers, which is a one-way street for the most part. So for me, with 365 Driven being an entrepreneurship community, I'm using the same business model I did with cars. I'm doing it with entrepreneurs. I have live events. We do virtual meetups. We want people in the community to become best friends, lifelong friends. And I guarantee they will, because I've seen that even in the car sectors. People have gotten married from meeting on my website. I've caused a lot of divorces too, I'll be honest. But the thing is that you can build these strong bonds and be a part of that. And they're always going to come back and hang out and tell people about that because of the value that they're getting. Another thing Kyle mentioned was about understanding your customers. Here's another thing that most people fail at when they're building something like this. They think that this is perfect for a podcast host. This is perfect for someone else that's creating YouTube content or video content on social. You have to treat everybody that's in your zone of influence as a potential customer, even if they're not paying you. And that's the thing that most people don't understand, is they think, okay, well, since you didn't buy anything from me, they think since you're not, subscribing to my thing or joining my group, that you're second class citizen, and I can, big league you and kind of just push you away and treat you like crap. The problem with that is that those are potential leads or customers that may eventually buy something from you or be one of your biggest fans or cheerleaders telling everybody else around you that's going to grow your movement. And the thing about that is that we have hundreds of thousands of people on LS1Tech and performancetrucks.net, but you got to think about that. They were getting that use, they were using that resource for free. It was free for them. So we made millions of dollars with hundreds of thousands of people that never bought a single thing from me. So you understand that in order to attract the dollars of the advertisers or have the leverage to get media PR credentials, I can go do all the releases and write for all the automotive magazines. I was no longer representing just Tony Whatley. I was representing hundreds of thousands of people. So I carried a lot more weight based on leverage. That leverage leads to financial gains at the other end. So build your movement, be a part of the thing, add a lot of value, even for people that are listening to this for free or not spending any money yet. Consider that everybody's a customer, even if they're not paying you, because once you get that following, once you build that community, you never know what the potential and where it leads.
Man, that's for those listening. Tony said some incredible things today, but that is something that is what I tell everybody and anybody that I meet. They might not be your customer now. And that philosophy right there, if you don't have that mindset, you are shortchanging yourself. Because I, right now in year 8, am still working with the relationships that I did not have in year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but they were listening, they were watching, they were waiting. Okay. So if you're starting a business, whatever it may be, whether it's a restaurant, whether you're changing tires, whatever it may be, you have to be the same way to the client that pays you $10,000 and to the client that pays you nothing. And the key word here is yet. Okay. Yet, because you got to be in this for the long term, or your little business is going to fizzle right out, and it's not going to be a side hustle no mo.
And I think taking it a step further, you know, Kyle really touched base on what I was going to talk about here, but it's more than just kind of the service, right? It's creating, we call it fair and event. We call it creating a sticky customer, right? Mm-hmm. How many points of contact can I have on you? To not, I don't like the word pinning the customer down, but so it makes them feel more engaged, not only in what you have to offer, but the people that you're also offering it to. Just like you said, hey, I want everybody in the forum to be friends with each other. Except we're all in this one group together. Why would any of us leave if everybody was right here? Talk a little bit more in depth. I really like the whole concept of marketplace forum for people who are just starting out. How do you kind of get that initial following? I know you talked about with giveaways and different things like that, but if there's nobody in the forum, what's the value proposition even going on there? Like what does that first kind of step look like? How do you start to build that and really market that outwards?
So the advantage of this kind of business or building an influence type strategy or a movement or a club benefits people like me because I don't need instant gratification. I'm very patient for results because I've done this over and over and over. And I realize that if I just invest the time, even if it's requiring working for free for a couple of years to build the message, to build the community, to add value, I'm patient for that. I'm not trying to monetize things too soon. Even with podcasts, a lot of people want to start a podcast and try to monetize. I'm almost 2 years in and I haven't monetized it. I don't have any ads running on my show, thousands of downloads, because I know if I grow that big enough, the money will come. Like I always think of money as a scorecard. It's a game. Everything that we do in life is a game. Business is a game. If you think about that, business is like a video game. We got rules, which are the regulations and tax policies. We've got big bosses, things that we got to overcome. We have a lot of different analogies with games and life. And we really practice the strategies and the execution as entrepreneurs, just like athletes practice the plays and the moves. But at the end of the game, if they're executing well and they're working as a team and they're going on the right mission, the scoreboard just shows up. You know, we don't practice to get the score. We practice execution. So when I'm really hyper focused on education and knowledge and execution and being around the right people to make things happen, the score, which is money, will eventually show up. And so I think that if you want to approach some business model of this strategy, you have to be patient. But the thing is, you have to be purposeful and have a lot of drive behind why you're doing this, because most people don't have that. I understand a lot of people out there are struggling, especially in that pandemic things that we're going on right now, that maybe they don't have a purpose. Maybe they don't have goals. A lot of people don't live on a schedule. They don't understand what they're going to do next week, much less next year. So if you want to think about that, where do you want to be? Or let's take a better frame. Look at where you're at today and really do a tough self-assessment of where are you at today. Are you happy with your fitness, your success, your life, your friend circle, all these things? Just analyze them. Are you truly happy, or you're content where you're at? And realize that the situation that you are currently in is based on decisions you made years ago. And when you start to realize that, that's when you take full accountability, because the situation you're in, whether that's good or bad, is based on decisions you made years ago that led to this. And some people right now may be listening to this or watching this and feeling like they just got punched in the face by that, and they don't like to hear that. So they go into denial. But you got to take that accountability and realize, like, even if your life is sucking right now, outside of acts of God or random things, obviously, or disease or things like that, that your situation is largely about where you're at: financial, physical, health, mental, all these different things. So when you understand that and you can take accountability for where you're at today, now you get to reflect on where you're going to take accountability for where you want to be. You should actually be excited that you get to control your future, just like you got to control today. And when you understand that I got myself here, I can get myself there, the question then becomes, what is there? What do I want to look like in 1 year? What is my physical fitness? What is the amount I got in my bank? What is the friend circle that I have a year from now? And you get to understand that you get to get there no matter what you want by just creating decisions and taking actions today to get there. So most people think about the past. They go back to what we talked about, the remember when people. I always surround myself with the people that talk about imagine when. Imagine when. Imagine when you're going to be like this. Imagine when you're going to go buy that car. Imagine when you're going to live in that house. I want to think about the future, not the past, because the past doesn't change. It's just there. It's history. What can I learn from the past to move forward? So that's the key, dude. You just got to surround yourself with the right people, hold yourself accountable, and understand that everything's on you.
Man, that's a gold drop right now. That's a little nugget of gold for everybody that's listening right here. The key word is patience. He's patient with the podcast. He knows that if he puts down and puts out great value, that at some point the podcast could be monetized. Or the podcast never gets monetized and it's just used as another source of information. And when you give without expecting anything in return, things mysteriously start working out. So that's such an important mindset concept that Tony's trying to tell you. Stop thinking that this is going to happen overnight and start taking tangible, step-by-step action towards that dream. And if the needle in your bank account doesn't start moving, that's okay. Yeah. Be in it for the long game and start treating each and every one of your customers and clients the same, even if they're not paying yet. Keyword is yet.
I think really going a step further on that, not only is it about being patient, but you have to enjoy the process, right? Like, you have to enjoy the journey. And, you know, his little gold nugget there about, you're at where you're at today because of the action you took yesterday and the week before that and the year before that. Like, you got to hold yourself accountable to that, right? Like, you are at any point in your life because of yourself. Like, at some point you just have to stop with the excuses and just own it. And the other thing, at least, has really helped for me, Tony, correct me or if this is your mindset too, but I am not only am I 100% in control of my situation, but I'm also 100% content in knowing that everything that happens in my life has been placed there for one reason or another. I might not see it today. I might not see it tomorrow. I might not see it till I'm on my deathbed, but I swear it was there for a reason. And if you can just have that mindset of not only patience, but just enjoying the journey of it all, I just feel like the rest kind of comes. What do you think about that, Tony?
I love that. That's actually something my mentor, Ed Milet, says a lot. He says that things happen for you, not to you. I mean, we got a lot of people out there blaming presidents and politics and things and their race and all these different things for who they are or where they're at. But at the end of the day, it's just like you said, Jake, they didn't take accountability for the things they have. And if they realize that people just like them have achieved a lot more, then why can't they do it? It's because other people made different decisions, took different actions. So if you're going to sit around and blame other people or your society, you're basically slapping the face of everybody else who has succeeded before you, that came from the exact same background or the same adversity challenges that you've had. So it's basically, you're just hiding from the truth at that point. So I love it that you talk about patience and purpose and things like that, because that's a key. Your life is your life. You know, what do you want to think? You know, what do you want to end at? What do you want to do? What is the legacy or the purpose or the thing that you want to create in this world? Most people just think way too small. They think, I can never make a difference. I'm just one voice. Everything starts with one voice. Every single company out there that you can think of has started with one voice. Every movement has started with one voice. Why can't that be you? If it's just lack of confidence or courage, you can work on that. You can be around the right people. You can hire people to teach you those things, because communication, confidence, all these things can be taught. They're skills. They're not something we're innately born with. So if you are lacking and you're honest with yourself, go hire a speaking coach, go join a Toastmasters, go do a video every single day, knowing you're going to suck for the first few months until you start to get the confidence and the speaking skills to be able to deliver your message. And as soon as you start to see other people start to tag along with your message, because they're following your journey, because you're inspiring them, and they can see the transformation within you, it's inspiring them. They're starting to inspire you in return. It's like this reciprocal thing that happens, and it's over and over, and it starts to compound and you grow. Because I was not out there at all until May of 2017. That's not long ago. I was very private with my life. People just knew me as the guy that had LS1Tech and a bunch of fancy cars. I didn't put myself out there. I didn't have pictures of me. I didn't stand in front of cameras. I didn't like my recorded voice. I just avoided that whole scenario. So it's really 3 years in. And when you think about what you can do in 3 years, it's because I could just outwork everybody. I may not be the best looking or have the best sound or whatever these self-limiting beliefs are, but I know I can outwork everybody. And I can assess pretty quickly how much effort somebody's putting into something that they want to achieve. And I can assess if I'm able or capable of doing that, or if I have the resources available to do that. Sometimes that's yes, sometimes that no, but I can always put in the work and do that and just keep pounding at it and showing up every single day. I mean, there's a reason my brand is called 365 Driven. It's every single day you got to put something in towards your productivity. And I'm not telling you guys to go work 7 days a week, but you should be productive 7 days a week. You should be maybe working that 5-day week if you're doing, but the other 2 days, the weekends that everybody screws off because they feel like they deserve some time off and they're complaining about their lives. They're not even applying the last 2 days of the week. They're literally working 5 out of 7 days. If you do the simple math, it comes out to a 71%. Kyle, you're a teacher. What is a 71% grade?
That's shit, Tony. That's average, and
That's
we're
normal.
against all that.
There we are. And that's the majority of people are working at a 71% that are complaining about their damn lives. And they don't understand that people like me and people like you guys are willing to be productive on the weekends too. Maybe it's a few hours that morning before the kids wake up or before the spouse wants to go do things that you can learn how to do a new skill, build that web page, get better at writing copy, whatever it is that you want to do. You can do those on the weekends. That's the time you have. And and I'm not saying don't take vacations, because I just got back from a 10-day vacation where I unplugged completely, because I'm able to build that and understand that it's going to come. And I'm going to have more of those because I focus on minimizing my time. I made money very little time. And I'm very good at thinking about how can I maximize things with very little time. But again, it goes back to Jake, the patience. You got to have the long-term results. You know, people see the short-term things and they think that they can model that, and it just doesn't work. And to give your listeners like a financial example, this is a good one, because in March of this year, I launched an online course that was very affordable. It's like $1 a day. Okay. 365, just like my brand. And I was getting the feedback from all these people and these coaches and funnel builders. And they're like, oh man, that's a really low price point. Like nobody's going to buy that. It's kind of like, no, I wouldn't do that. I was getting all these recommendations from people from saying I shouldn't do that. And it's like, well, have either of these people or any of these people ever built a massive community or a massive following before? And the answer is no. So their perspective's a little different than mine. So maybe they don't, or maybe they're underestimating my potential. So I launched this course and made $60,000 in one weekend. Profit.
Off a 365 price tag.
In 2 days. In 2 days, I made that without spending $1 on ads, all organic, just posting it on my Instagram, just posting it on my Facebook, just posting it on my LinkedIn, sending it to my email list from the podcast listeners. Now, from face value, people will be like, oh my God, you made $60,000 in 2 days. It's like, no, actually I made $60,000 in 2 days because of what I've done the 2 years prior to that I didn't charge anybody a dime for. So if you want to make $60,000 or $100,000 in a quick amount of time, you got to put in the work. You got to create the value. You got to build the audience. You got to give them value that they're actually seeing results from, and then they're willing to buy something from you later. So it's all about patience.
Man, that's awesome, Tony. I'm even if no listeners came away from anything, I loved every single minute of that conversation. I had a hard time keeping the interview going because I'm just sitting here and absorbing like a sponge. Your keys of patience, diligence, doing something every day of the year is why you've been successful and why you will continue to be. And I really appreciate you being on the show. Could you tell our guests where we can find you on the web?
Absolutely. My website is 365driven.com. So 365driven.com. You'll find links there to all my social medias, my best-selling book, the society that I just mentioned, the group of entrepreneurs, and everything I'm working on there. And as well as the podcast. Since you're podcast listeners, my show is called 365 Driven.
Right on. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. In order to grow our podcast, we need your help. Please subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform and tell a friend about every episode you find value in, and share the episode on your favorite social media platform. If you like the episode, please rate and review. You can find us at Against All Average on all your favorite social media platforms and at againstallaverage.com. Another big shout out to the Side Hustle Millionaire, Tony Whatley, and this episode's sponsor, Fame Pro Services. And with that, we thank you for listening to the Against All Average podcast. We'll see you next time.